At the 2025 Grammys, Sabrina Carpenter was nominated for Best New Artist, which is ironic because she's on her 6th studio album and has been in the music industry for over a decade. I was roughly aware of her career before, so seeing her sudden explosion to fame in the past couple of years was surprising. And obviously not just to me, since many others were calling her an industry plant at the time. After a little digging, I found out her massive burst in popularity followed her exiting of Hollywood Records, which is Disney's record label they use for their pop stars, which makes sense since Sabrina had been on the show Girl Meets World. I'd heard rumors about Hollywood Records signing their actors/musicians to predatory contracts, being super controlling of their artists, and also fumbling many of their big names. So I assumed Hollywood Records was holding her back and being too controlling, especially since she even said she doesn't view her first few albums under Disney as part of her discography. So to see if this is actually the case with Sabrina and just how bad of a record label Hollywood Records is, I wanted to dig a little deeper, and what I found was crazy. Music has been a crucial foundation of Disney's business model since its beginning back in 1923. Whether it's through the 1928 release of Steamboat Willie, which was the debut of Mickey Mouse, or decades later to 1994 with The Lion King and its massive songs like Circle of Life, Can You Feel the Love Tonight, and many more. To this day, music is obviously very important to Disney's media as they make movies and shows with iconic soundtracks. And it may be surprising to hear that they have their own record labels, but it kind of makes sense. Early on, since neither Walt or Roy Disney had any music industry experience, they had to rely on outside music publishers. On top of this, to raise funds, they even sold off the rights to a ton of their classic soundtracks, like for example Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Pinocchio, and Dumbo. As the company grew, Disney eventually stepped into the music world themselves with the incorporation of Walt Disney Music Company in 1949. At the time, its main purpose was just to publish and license songs from Cinderella. They also started experimenting with original non-film music. Basically, they started making songs that had nothing to do with their movies or their shows. And it did lead to a handful of successful songs, but for every non-film hit, there was a multitude more that flopped. Regardless, they knew the potential for making money was there. And in the following decades, they opened a bunch of Disney sub-labels. One of the first was Wonderland Music Company in 1959. Then later came Disneyland Records in 1956, Buena Vista Records in 1959, Hollywood Records in 1989, Lyric Street Records in 1997, and in that same year, Disney purchased Mammoth Records as well. By creating or purchasing these different labels, Disney had all of their bases covered in pretty much every genre. And it wasn't just for music directly related to shows or movies, but the main label that's important to focus on here is Hollywood Records. Hollywood Records is Disney's main branch out into the realm of popular music, and for a long time, it was actually one of their biggest failures. As mentioned earlier, Disney wanted to expand their music operations by looking to develop and promote the careers of a wide variety of artists in various genres. But before Disney decided to start taking full advantage of their child stars, Hollywood Records struggled. Early on, they failed to sign popular new artists like Nirvana, The Smashing Pumpkins, Naughty by Nature, Cypress Hill, and even Dr. Dre. In Dr. Dre's case, the deal was just about to be made until higher-ups in the command chain shut the deal down because of Dre's lyrics and image. And while Disney wanting to maintain a squeaky clean image does make sense, this example gives you a good glimpse into Hollywood Records' goals. They weren't a label made to empower artist expression or creativity, they just wanted to make money. They got their first big win in 1990 after securing the distribution rights to Queen's entire catalog, but then Freddie Mercury died just a year later. It was still able to generate them some revenue though, and it gave them some hope, but they had a much bigger fumble coming their way. Basically, Disney had this recurring show called the Mickey Mouse Club, which started in the 1950s and was revamped a couple of times. And by the show's third run in the early 90s, it featured skits and other performances all in front of a live studio audience. During the 2 seasons in 1993 and 94, the cast included not only Justin Timberlake, but also Christina Aguilera and Britney Spears. With how massive of names they are today, you must be thinking the Mickey Mouse Club had to have gone crazy back then. Well, not quite. Immediately after those 2 seasons concluded, the show was canceled. Within just 5 years of the show's end, all 3 performers already went multi-platinum. From 1995 to 1998, Hollywood Records was in financial and structural turmoil. A bunch of the issues stemmed from bouncing president to president, at times going for over a year with no head to the branch at all. And to kick off a chaotic era, Hollywood Records was forced to fire its top staff producer, Mark Hudson, following some sexual harassment complaints. When Mark was first reported for making lewd comments and pressuring female employees to go on dates, instead of immediately firing him, Hollywood Records moved the victims to different departments and sent Mark to a Disney-recommended specialist for counseling. But the problem didn't end there, as in the following months, more and more women came forward with complaints. For a little bit, Hollywood Records tried to sweep it all under the rug. That was until Seconds magazine published an interview with a former actress who appeared in the Broadway play Annie, and who is now a recording artist with Sony's Epic Records. In the interview, she she also spoke of harassment from Mark, which finally prompted Hollywood Records to fire him, a PR decision that came a lot later than it probably should have. To sum up how bad this label was doing on top of all the controversy, going into 1997, Hollywood Records reported around $150 million in losses since 1990. Overall, the 90s were a complete failure for Disney's record label. They even destroyed one of the previously successful labels they purchased after running Mammoth Records into the ground. As a result, there were some major changes that needed to happen. Disney has a ton of child stars that many of us know and love today. And as I'm sure most of you are aware, not only did a lot of them have acting careers, but they also had music careers too, with a handful of them becoming very successful. And this was all according to Disney's plan. After having Justin Timberlake, Christina Aguilera, and Britney Spears slip through their hands, Disney and Hollywood Records probably thought, and I'm just guessing how the board meeting went, but they probably met up and said, why don't we just have the kids that already work for us do all the work, and then sign them to bad record deals and overwork them and control every aspect of their lives like robots to perfect the actor-singer model we previously missed out on. Sounds like a great idea. It started with Hilary Duff and her show Lizzie McGuire, with the first season dropping in 2001. The show portrays the life and issues of a teen girl, and pretty much it was an instant hit. Early on in the show, Disney has Lizzie show an interest in pop stars. Disney was clearly salty about losing Britney Spears.
Mom, Dad, Lizzie's talking about dressing like Britney Spears.
Britney Spears is the one who got all developed, right?
I couldn't possibly look like Britney for at least 5 more years and like 5 million sit-ups.
At the end of the first season, Hollywood Records released the Lizzie McGuire soundtrack, which went platinum. After the second season came a movie, which pretty much completely leaned into the future musician narrative and also had a 2x platinum soundtrack. But the show never got renewed because Hilary wasn't happy with how much she was being paid. Disney had figured out the method to blowing up pop stars, but this is also when it became apparent that their record label wasn't quite the best. With Hilary's mom, who was her manager at the time, saying, Disney thought they'd be able to bully us into accepting whatever offer they wanted to make, and they couldn't. Around this time, Disney had Hilary put out her debut album, Metamorphosis, which went 4x platinum. By this point, Hilary Duff was pretty much Disney's OG pop star. And Hilary Duff was a good example of 2 things to come with Disney's new pop stars. One, they had the method figured out for how to create the actor/singer double threats, but 2, we also saw a glimpse in many more problems to come, whether it be poor pay, being overly controlling, and bad contracts. With Hilary Duff, Disney was basically trying to recreate a kid-friendly version of Britney Spears, who they missed out on in the past. And while it worked out for a while, she clearly didn't have enough staying power, and Hilary Duff ended up only being the prototype. In retrospect, Hilary expressed extreme discontentment with the creative aspects and decisions she was allowed to make with her music. She said, "When you're under the control of a label, you don't always get to have the sound you like. If I could change it, I would. And it would sound less pop. My name is Hilary Duff, and I don't know why I don't get to make Hilary Duff music. I just have to get the freedom to do it. And during the show, I do get to do that. I get to throw away all of the CD stuff that has been mastered and sounds really pretty, and I get to sing live." Even later on, when she released music that didn't perform nearly as well, she said that she was at least happy and it felt original and authentic. Ironically, some Redditors pointed out that Hilary Duff had 2 greatest hits albums and 0 top 10 singles, which was pretty much just to fulfill her contract and get her out of her horrible Hollywood's record deal. Since, you know, it's a little early on to put out greatest hits albums in your catalog when you're a kid. And since she was signed to a multi-album deal at just 14, combined with the earlier pay bullying complaints from her mom, you can only imagine how atrocious the details of her contract were. But she was only the first victim of Disney's record labels. After the Hilary Duff experiment fizzled out, Disney's new strategy had potential, and they decided to completely lean into this. Disney began hunting for some more child stars to convert into pop stars, playing around with this idea in movies like High School Musical, which was extremely successful. After seeing the success of Lizzie McGuire in High School Musical, Disney basically tried to combine the both into a concept, and that resulted in Hannah Montana. As I'm sure many of you remember, the first season of Hannah Montana, starring Miley Cyrus, was a smash hit. All of the soundtracks went crazy, and Disney decided to have Miley Cyrus make her own debut album as well, and this also performed great. Around this time, Disney also signed the Jonas Brothers and introduced Selena Gomez as well. Selena Gomez showed up in Wizards of Waverly Place, the Jonas Brothers did the Camp Rock movie, which also brought their next star Demi Lovato. Over the next few years, Disney was aggressively developing each of these young performers into the next generation of pop stars at whatever cost necessary. The next few years went as followed. Miley's debut album went platinum. Demi's debut album went gold. The Jonas Brothers album went platinum. Selena appeared in Another Cinderella Story, which is the sequel to the original Hilary movie. Then Disney uses this momentum to launch her debut album, which went platinum. Demi got her own show, Sunny with a Chance. The Jonas Brothers got their own show, Jonas. And by this point, all 4 stars not only had their their own shows, but also performed the intro songs on them. Disney was pumping out content from each of these stars left, right, and center, which honestly started raising some red flags about child labor. I mean, Miley ended up dropping the Diamond Classic Party in the USA at just 16, so Hollywood Records was not going to stop anytime soon. As the years went by, the shows ran their course, and Disney's megastars rapidly aged out of their demographic. Things started to change. After getting some subpar ratings, Demi and the brothers' shows were basically canceled. On top of this, the brothers took a break from each other, and Demi was forced into a treatment facility. Then Miley put out the song Can't Be Tamed, which was a clear sign she was growing tired of the whole Hannah Montana thing. And when Hannah Montana did officially end, all Disney had left was Selena with Wizards, which is nothing to scoff at since she was putting out albums that performed well, but again, this didn't last forever. Everything was falling apart with Disney's new pop stars, and it wasn't because of the stars themselves. The cracks were about to reveal some dark truths behind the screen. Some fans were trying to blame like social media and stuff like that, but details from behind the scenes tell a very different story. In Miley's case, she had a very similar sentiment as Hilary Duff, expressing no creative control. The simplest way to explain how desperately she wanted out of her Hollywood Records deal and to make her own stuff can be explained by her projects around the end. Can't Be Tamed was her last album with Hollywood Records, and the cover speaks for itself. Soon after this, Miley left Disney and then came with the controversial album Bangers. It contained the shockingly viral song and accompanying music video for both Wrecking Ball and We. Like, the Wrecking Ball video having a scene where she was completely naked is a pretty insane pivot for an ex-Disney star, and as I'm sure many of you remember, this was like the biggest thing at the time. I remember I was like 12 and I told my uncle I watched that video and he snitched on me. Crazy. With such an extreme and sudden change, Miley's creative decisions were clearly pent up under years of being boxed in by Disney's suffocating PR machine. On top of this, she was just simply overworked during her time with Disney. She said that at just 12 years old and for years following, she had to be up at 5:30 a.m. for 12-hour workdays Monday through Friday and sometimes weekends.
I'm probably like 12 or 13. Friday, January 5th, 5:30 a.m. Hair and makeup in my hotel. 7 a.m. we get picked up. 7:15 I'm on the news. 7:45 I have another live interview. 8:15 another interview. 8:45 another interview. 9:30 to 11 a.m. meeting with editors. Back to the hotel. Okay, I have to do an interview, but the reporters are all 5th grade students. 1 to 2:30, me and my dad have a lunch interview. 2:40, we have to go to the Life magazine photo shoot. 3 to 5, interview and photo shoot for the Father's Day issue. Arrive at 6 p.m. for Kids Online interview. Then at 6:15, we have another interview. Then the next day starts at 7 a.m. and ends at 7:30 p.m. I'm a lot of things, but lazy ain't one of them.
And she's not the only one from the pop star era to experience this kind of treatment. Selena had something similar to those already mentioned, but she was a lot less vocal about Disney. In one interview, she reflected on the controlling levels of PR and imaging, saying, "I don't want to be anything that's a show or a persona. I just don't." And she was also forced to release an insane amount of content, which led to an overwhelming schedule for such a young kid. And ironically, another editor noticed that Hilary Duff and Selena Gomez both released greatest hits albums to get out of their Hollywood Records contracts, which seems to be another example of an artist growing up and saying, maybe I don't want to be under this overbearing PR machine of a label. These were all experienced by the Jonas Brothers too, but they also had some more negative things specific to their time with Disney as well. After realizing that they were too old to stay with Disney, they left the company and exposed Disney for a ton of insane business operations, including doing drugs with child stars, hooking up with Jonas Brothers fans, and slamming Disney Channel's media strategies. The brothers mentioned that while Disney quickly launched their careers, the experience wasn't as pleasant as it might have looked. Joe described the process of making their show saying, "It just ended up being some weird slapstick humor that only a 10-year-old would laugh at. They took out the kissing scene that Nick had. I had to shave every day because they wanted me to pretend like I was 16 when I was 20. When the show was done, I cut my hair off and grew as much of a beard as I could." And in a later interview, Joe straight up said that he thinks that Disney outright ruins their child stars, pointing mainly to the insane image control and specifically mentioning Vanessa Hudgens' 2007 photo leak, which led to her spending hours in the Disney offices on lockdown. Joe further explained the PR machine, saying, "If a lyric was slightly sexual, someone at the record company would tell us we had to change it. It could be the most innocent reference, like 'I'm alone in a room with you,' and it would have to go. It felt like we couldn't be creative, so we stopped listening to them and started handing shit in." Experiences like these were common for the Jonas Brothers, and it overlapped with other stars as well. Joe apparently had a secret relationship with Demi Lovato just months before she went into rehab. During this time, he witnessed a lot, all while under the pressure of Disney. He said, "I really got to know her and got to see the ins and outs of what she was struggling with, like drug abuse. I felt like I needed to take care of her, but at the same time, I was living a lie. Because I wasn't happy, but felt like I had to stay in it for her, because she needed help. I couldn't express any of that, of course, because I had a brand to protect." And on top of this, he also exposed that the first time he tried weed was underage with Demi and Miley while on set. So the whole Disney image was a facade. While they forced their young stars to have this perfect image, and it just was so forced, fake, and overwhelming. But the artist who probably had the worst experience under them was Demi Lovato. Demi said during an interview on the Call Her Daddy podcast that being overworked and controlled as a Disney child star sparked eating disorders and drug abuse, claiming she was barricaded in hotels to stop her from eating and was denied treatment even after she vomited blood. Demi also added on, saying she felt pressure to maintain an overwhelming workload because a new star could take her place at any time. To cope with all the pressure, she turned to drugs and alcohol, all around the age of 16 years old. She was also financially supporting her whole family, which made things even worse. And Disney was the company pushing these intense hours and intense schedules, all to fuel their giant pop star machine. Demi spoke out on the Disney image expectation, which pressured their stars to be the perfect role models for millions of fans. And as a threat or warning, she said that Disney would always mention how she's replaceable if she acted up. So while Demi seemingly experienced some of the worst of it all, I'm sure there's others out there who haven't spoken up about it who had a much worse time at Disney. Because they had overworked their artists, been super overbearing with the PR, and given them no creative control, as well as just trapping them in horrible deals, Hollywood Records and Disney pretty much forced these artists out of the label, which is why a couple of them were putting out greatest hits albums just to fulfill their contracts. But because of just how successful they had been with their pop stars and how much money they probably made, they were going to keep trying to have some pop star / actors under their thumb, with them now setting their eyes on Sabrina Carpenter and Olivia Rodrigo. Hollywood Records was still trying, though, to recreate the pop star phenomenon they once had. At this point, they still had over 25 up-and-coming artists signed to the label. But since you probably can't remember any of them from around the time Frozen came out, I'm sure you can imagine how their careers panned out. At this point, the future of Disney and its pop stars looked extremely uncertain, but the Disney machine wasn't finished yet. Ironically, Sabrina Carpenter ended up getting discovered by Disney after being one of 7,000 to enter an online singing contest called the Next Miley Cyrus Project. The contest was actually run by Miley, so it's crazy they had her running her own replacement contest. Sabrina was eventually cast in Girl Meets World in 2013. The show ran for 72 episodes and ended in 2017. Similar to her predecessors, she recorded the theme song, and in 2014 she signed to Hollywood Records. They locked her into a 5-album deal when she was just 14 years old. In the following years, she went on multiple tours and released 4 studio albums, all of which had very limited success, especially when you compare it to where she's at today. By the release of Sabrina's 4th album with Hollywood Records, it was obvious she was over the teen pop scene as more adult themes started coming up in the music. But Sabrina wasn't the only artist Disney had their eyes on, because in 2016, Olivia Rodrigo was cast on Bizaardvark. After playing that role for a little bit, she was in a High School Musical movie, and after seeing a little success on the music side, she decided to go a slightly different route. She didn't sign with Hollywood Records, despite them most likely offering her a deal, and she decided to go with another label. In 2020, Olivia signed a deal with Interscope Records instead of Hollywood. And you might be wondering, why would she do that? Was she like super genius? Did she know what was about to happen? Well, sort of, because of what happened to Sabrina. To many fans' surprise, in 2021, Sabrina announced she was signing to Island Records before finishing her 5-album deal with Disney. Sabrina was expressing how exhausted and overworked she felt working with Disney, and she also said she lacked creative control, saying, "The amount of times that I really believed in a song, those weren't the songs that had music videos. A lot of the time, you're getting introduced to these songwriters, and it's like speed dating. I was meeting someone, and then having to tell them all about my life in 30 minutes, and then writing a song in 1 day. It felt so impersonal, and I never felt like I was telling the truth." And we're not quite sure how she got out of her 5-album deal, because she never fully fulfilled it. But like I said, she doesn't even consider the Disney albums as part of her discography, saying, "For the people who love those early records and listen to them, I love you for that. But I personally feel a sense of separation from them, largely due to the shift in who I am as a person and as an artist, pre-pandemic and post-pandemic." And after finding out some Hollywood Records info in an interview with Nardwuar, Sabrina let out how she really felt.
This is my debut album.
On vinyl. Very rare, isn't it?
I don't even have it. That's how rare it is.
Only 200 made, given to record execs.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie.
Not given to you?
No. or maybe at the time, but I don't know. I moved a couple times in the middle.
Oh, so you might have had it.
Only 200 made? Damn.
Or less.
They really didn't give a about me.
Ironically, even though Sabrina and Olivia sort of had a little bit of a beef, it seems like Olivia learned from Sabrina and all the other Disney pop stars' mistakes. And unlike many of the others who at least went on to have pretty massive music careers while with Disney, Zendaya probably served as another example or warning, but this time as one that never even got that far in the music industry to begin with. You might be wondering, Zendaya is one of the biggest stars to come from Disney, but why wasn't she making music like pretty much every other star from the time? Well, she said, "I think the music industry takes a little bit of passion away from you. It sucks you dry a little bit. What I thought I wanted, it's not what I want anymore. Especially when I think about what I had to deal with in the music industry. If anyone asks my #1 advice, for the entertainment industry in general, but mostly the music industry, it's look over those contracts, every single word, and don't sign anything that isn't worth it to you. You are worth more than they will say you are." Most of her experience in the music industry, by the way, was with Hollywood Records. She released a couple songs after them, but that was pretty much it. So obviously she's probably talking about them. So clearly Disney loves to exploit their young child stars, take advantage of them, control them, mold them into the perfect kid-friendly stars they can be, and overwork them and a bunch of other things. Hollywood Records really is one of the worst record labels, as well as the Disney machine that kind of made them these musical acting double threats. They clearly held back their artists and didn't let them be what they truly wanted to, which is why when you see artists like Sabrina or Miley leave and then later see way more success, or when artists like Olivia or Rodrigo don't sign at all and are very successful, it makes a lot of sense when you know what's going on behind the scenes. If you like this video, you might like my video where I talk about non-rap diss tracks, where I talk about Sabrina Carpenter and Olivia Rodrigo's kind of funny beef and love triangle thing. So make sure to click the video that's on screen right now.